when I was in elementary school, I remember taking a test, a quiz or something. At the end, the output was what was the best calling for you. And I took this whole thing, and my friends were like firefighters and astronauts, whatever. And I'm like, it says salesman. And I came home and I was crying to my parents. I was like, what does this mean? This sounds so horrible. Like, what is a sales? Like, you're a kid. You don't know what that means. But looking back, I realized that it nailed it. And so when I was, in college, I was like, sales is something where there's a level of justice to it. And I really appreciated that. So sales was as close to what I now know as business ownership as you could get right out of college.
Elevate the hustle.
Welcome to Elevate the Hustle, where we break down what it actually means to build teams, scale companies, and lead with intensity. I'm your host, Dan Mayton.
I'm Dom Piccirillo.
We got another special guest with us today. Excited to get him on the show, Matt Naimoli. Welcome to Elevate the Hustle.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
It's good to have you.
Excited to have you. So Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us the elevator pitch of who is Matt Naimoli.
Well, it would be too long of an episode if I start way back when, but I was born to two. No, I'm kidding. I won't go that far back, but lived overseas for a long time, in Africa, Germany, and then all up and down the East Coast for my childhood. Got into sports young, ended up playing baseball in college, Division I catcher and captain for the University of Vermont Catamounts, who canceled their program 4 years after I graduated, RIP. And then in my senior year, in college, I was looking for a sales internship to kind of just get my feet wet while I was playing baseball. And I was hired by Liberty Mutual to do basically a sales internship in my senior year, 10 hours a week, something simple, but they were paying great. The day I was hired, the manager who hired me actually got fired. So the next few months was basically the sales agents in Williston, Vermont, coming to my baseball games, and I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this working thing is great. And so graduated, and I was like, well, why wouldn't I go to Liberty? So I started working in insurance at Liberty Mutual, selling personal lines just outside of Boston, and I did that for a few years. I was a good salesperson, but I wasn't the best. But I just worked harder and longer than most. So I was either the first or second in the country a couple of years in a row. And my top competitor and I ended up deciding at one day that we wanted to be entrepreneurs, and we didn't know what that meant because we were 24. But we decided to start our own agency. So we got turned down by about 15 different carriers because we didn't have any history selling, at the agency level. They're like, come back to us when you have history and profit sharing and loss ratios. And we're like, first off, I don't know what any of that stuff is. And second, how are we supposed to get that without you? Like, there's a chicken and egg issue. So finally got one carrier to say yes to us. And he retired a week later. So kind of had a nice little ring there. And then started with them. And then, that was the start of GNN Insurance, which was mainly a personal line shop agency just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And within a couple of years, we focused solely on home buyers. That was our niche. We focused on home buyers, and we networked with everyone in the ecosystem that helped influence home buyers in the buying process. So realtors, loan officers, attorneys. That was our niche, and we just went all in. I could go on for a while as to the growth of the agency, but I'll let you guys.
There's so much there, I think. I want to go back to the baseball days. So being a Division I athlete is not easy. Can you just talk a little bit about like some of the lessons you learned as an athlete and how those lessons like transformed your career or gave you like founding principles that I'm assuming allowed you to be successful, but I could be totally wrong here. Maybe baseball wasn't very good for you. I don't know.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think athletes that play at a high level are used to sacrificing the time in the books, necessarily sacrificing social time, sacrificing, parties and all the other things, right? Still happened, but you still had to prioritize. And so I think it forced you to prioritize and be good with your time and time management. And if you only had an hour between practices, you go to the library and get stuff done. I think that was really helpful for me, winning as part of a team. or competing as part of a team was really, really fun. Yeah, I enjoyed leading. I enjoyed being part of a group. I enjoyed, even when we lost, losing together felt better than doing it alone. So like the sports of tennis and golf, which I enjoy now, wasn't something that appealed to me as much as team sports. And so I think for those reasons, those things really help translate into business. Uh, at the end of the day, it's a competition. Anyone who plays at a high level, they had to compete for a lot of years to get to that point. So they're kind of used to competing. They enjoy the process of competing, not just the outcome. And we had some amazing wins and some amazing runs, but also some heartbreaking losses. And to kind of wake up the next day and continue to go and try to continue to push is basically what an entrepreneur does for the first 5 years of their journey. So yeah, I
Well,
think
you're
it
lucky you
translates
only
well.
had to do that for 5 years.
Some have to do it a lot longer. So, so let's talk about, that sales internship, right? Did you always know you wanted to go into sales? Was it like, I feel like I have the skill set? How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, I took a both my parents were Peace Corps volunteers. They are, and then they worked in public health. They are the best of the best humans you could find. And so for me to find myself in insurance and in sales was like so anti-family. But when I was in elementary school, I remember taking a test, a quiz or something. At the end, the output was what was the best calling for you. And I took this whole thing, and my friends were like firefighters and astronauts, whatever. And I'm like, it says salesman. And I came home and I was crying to my parents. I was like, what does this mean? This sounds so horrible. Like, what is a sales? Like, you're a kid. You don't know what that means. But looking back, I realized that it nailed it. And so when I was, in college, I was like, sales is something where there's a level of justice to it. And I really appreciated that. The better you are, the harder you work, the more input you have, the better output you get. And that sense of like justice is really something that I don't know if I could live without. So sales was as close to what I now know as business ownership as you could get right out of college. And I knew that experience would be really useful.
And thank you for sharing that. I can relate a lot to it, even though I think I'm a pretty terrible salesperson. But as a business owner, you're always selling something, or somehow you're selling, right? You're selling yourself. You're selling your company. So now going back to internship, right? And now you become number one, number two sales guy in the company. Is that just like, I'm going to outwork you? I'm going to be better than you. I'm going to be more persistent than you. Like, walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. So those first few years, I mean, there's part of me that you wake up on a Monday, you don't have any sales, and you're sweating. Those Sunday scaries and Monday mornings like can be tough because at this first few years you don't have as many referral sources. You're kind of generating a lot off old cold calls, like just a bunch of random stuff, and you're young 20s, and so a lot of it was just like I don't want to fail. I don't want to be. I don't want to mess up. I want to be able to make income. Like I need to pay for rent. Like I also want to like I'm starting off into this journey post college. I'm like in the business world. I want to be successful, and that was almost the start of it. And then after a while, at 6 months, 12 months, you're like, all right, I kind of got the hang of this. I'm not like gonna bust out. Like at that point, it's like, okay, now I got to be smarter. I got to figure out how to generate more leads, better qualified opportunities, and transition them to clients much quicker. And then it's just constantly trying to iterate your own growth.
What were some of the things that you were doing? I guess what were some of the things you did when you like first started that
Yeah.
worked or didn't work? And then like as you went on and realized like what was working, what did that look like for you?
That's such a great question, and it brings back a really embarrassing moment. So, uh, this must have been 6 months in.
Nobody listens or watches the show. Go ahead. Tell us what it is.
Well, like 6 months. Speaking of like throwing everything against the wall, like, I remember early on they were like, "Hey, this is your pie, your marketing pie, and there's 6 or 7 wedges. You got to do a little bit of cold calls to house accounts, referral networking, lead lists, whatever, right? You do, and one of those that I chose was to work with Subaru dealerships because Liberty Mutual at the time had a really awesome discount with Subaru drivers. And in Massachusetts at the time, this was right before it transitioned into competitive marketplace. The only way to save money at that time was through those affinity partnerships. So I was like, Subaru's a great in. So I worked with a local Subaru dealership right when I was like started with Liberty, and I got them to agree to do this massive car seat safety event. And we were going to coordinate everything, organize everything, bring in the firefighters, do a huge catering event. Like it was a big, big deal. And we worked on it for like 3 months. And they gave us access to 50,000 names and emails of all their previous, Subaru buyers over the last 20 years. Gave it to me, which was the wrong person to give to. So I started sending out emails to like 1,000 at a time. This is before spam would, you'd move into spam.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything better. Like I barely knew how to send out an envelope. And I accidentally included everyone in CC instead of BCC.
Oh
So
boy.
this was like, I don't know, 4 p.m. on a Friday. And I thought I was going to get canned because I got like 30 or 40 emails a minute from people just cursing me out, being like, what have you done? Long story short, the strategy did not work. 4 people showed up. I had a huge catering truck, and I realized quickly I just inputted a ton of effort and hours into something that didn't generate any outcome. But it was one of those things you had to try. The stuff that did work was networking with the referral partners, finding people that I could connect and build relationships with, making a ton of calls to house accounts that hadn't been talked to for years. Just I think it was just sheer output that helped.
What
So
was the
how
biggest
did,
lesson you learned? Sorry,
wow.
what's the biggest lesson you
I was
learned
gonna
from the
I was gonna ask
Subaru?
a similar question. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I would say that, not all opportunities should be pursued. Because like that event was good from a certain perspective, and there are other strategies that were good. There's return on your time, but that varies significantly from one strategy to another. So I think early on realizing like, like I can spend 5 hours calling 40 people, 50 people, have a bunch of conversations, maybe sell 2 policies, or I could go out for 3 hours and network, generate opportunities that just inbound, and I was halfway decent at that. So I was like, okay, I'll spend more time doing that and making the phone ring. And then each of those phone calls that come in, I'm closing a couple policies every single time. So I think figuring out that not all opportunities are created equal, not all leads are created equal was an early win.
And which brings me to my follow-up question. Fast forward to you guys starting GNN. Did that lesson, did you learn from your mistake? Did before you guys launch some sort of new project, did you think back to that lesson and be like, let me make sure I have my I's dotted and my T's crossed?
Yeah, it helped us more than if we had started from day one and we didn't have those wins and losses. I would say that we still threw a lot against the wall because that first year, it's like you can't be too critical and too fine, and you have to kind of just do it all and try it all. And I mean, we were having people come in that were roofers, didn't speak our, English, and we were trying to figure out how to write their business, which, you'd never do a year in, but at the beginning, like every single lead was an opportunity to create revenue. And so we did it all for the first year, but we definitely spent more and more time with partnerships that generated really qualified leads. And then that just grew and grew. And so that a year in, we started abandoning things that weren't as high, high quality. We just went all in on partnerships that could generate home buyers for us.
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, we have to try things that, like, you don't know if it's going to work, right? Like, you think it's going to work. Like the Subaru idea seemed like a good idea, but you know, sometimes things that seem like good ideas just don't pan out. And I think it's just trying those things out, realizing they don't work, and then just keep trying more and more stuff until you find the thing that works and go all in on that, right?
Yeah. People who say like, "Hey, pick your niche and just go all in on it," it's because they've had the opportunity to fail a bunch in a bunch of other spaces first. I think that needs to be talked about more. It's like
We could tell
you
you all
do,
about that, Matt.
We can tell you.
yeah. I mean, the most successful people, like it's their 12th thing that they've tried, and they figured it out finally, and they were able to evaluate off of, relative to all the things that didn't work as well.
You have to have a strong jaw, right? You're gonna take a lot of uppercuts, a lot of jabs, and you got to be able to, and you're gonna get knocked the fuck out. But you have to get up and be like, all right, what else you got?
Right.
And eventually, you start punching back, and you're gonna land some of those hooks, and you start
Right.
winning the fight.
Yeah.
So let's talk about GNN. You guys were focused on home buyers. How did you guys land on that? How did you guys decide this is like our
Yeah.
niche is gonna work?
We had an exercise like a year and a half in, and we took all the ways we generated business and we put them on one axis, and then we kind of evaluated the return, policies per client, closing ratio, lead to bind time, and just as much as we could. It wasn't as objective as it might sound. It was kind of a little subjective, but we figured out quickly like referrals from loan officers and realtors closed at a very high level. We got multiple policies per client, and the time that was controlled. It was a controlled sale because they had to get what we offered in order to get what they really wanted, which was their home. And so once we realized that, we had 5 or 6 relationships that were strong. We went to all of them and said, "Hey, who are your best referral partners? We'd love to meet them." And then we just kind of spider webbed it from there. And then if any opportunities came, eventually, a year after that, I don't know if it was because we watched The Office or if it was where it came from, frankly, but we were gifted bobbleheads of ourselves because in lieu of taking income for the first 13 or 14 months, and it's kind of spurred the idea of, hey, why don't we create custom gifting for our top referral partners? And then that evolved into, why don't we just do that for the top loan officers and realtors in the state? And so we got our first like $10,000 purchase that was a big purchase was 100 bobbleheads of the top loan officers, realtors, and attorneys in Massachusetts. And then we delivered them all to them. And it was a big aha moment. It was a big investment at the time. We hadn't paid ourselves, but it was a really great return. Got us in the door a lot with people who we would have never said yes to us, and it created a level of fun and reciprocity feeling. Allowed us to open up conversations and create a lot more networking opportunities. And then we just used that and compounded that. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 years, we made 1,300 bobbleheads. And so it was a really fun project. And it spawned podcasts and vlogging and all the things that allowed us to maximize the network that we had and stay top of mind with hundreds of referral partners.
That's awesome. I mean, custom gifting works. It sounds like you understand marketing and know how to build a brand, which is awesome to hear. And in 2017, you guys were voted best places to work. You made Inc. 5,000 3 years in a row. What is it? What does it take to build an organization that is voted best place to work? Why do people
Yeah.
want to work for you, or why do they get excited about it?
Yeah. I think it's not to oversimplify it, but we always looked at it like two reasons why we were able to accomplish kind of what we accomplished. One was we actually cared about the people that we worked with, and we made them feel important because they were, and we loved all over them because they helped us build a really cool brand business. And on a day-to-day basis, we had a lot of fun because we had really good people around us. So like being like good people and caring about who you were working with and empathetic and supportive and all the things like that makes a big deal, right? People could choose a lot of places to work and probably could have made more money or whatever, more career advancement, but they chose to work with us because we had a really fun time. We treated them well. Second half of that though is like, if we never evolved as business owners from producers, it would have been just an absolute shit show. And I don't care how nice we were, kind we were, supportive, it wouldn't have been a healthy environment because we were growing too fast and we were the biggest problem. We were the bottleneck. So I think it was 2014 or so, we realized like at 3 a.m. I'm emailing, my partner, and at 4 a.m. he wakes up and he starts emailing me back like, this gotta be a better way. Too much is like rolling up to us. And so took a step back. We talked to people we respected in different industries. They introduced us to some coaches and implementers. We hired a bunch. Eventually we got into EOS, and that was like 2014, 2015. And it just allowed us to implement a system, operations, management, processes, all the things that a graduated business should look like. We were able to implement over the next 2 years. So by the time 2016, 17 rolled around, we had been sort of elevated out of the business to a point where we weren't the cog in the wheel anymore. And we had leaders who were actually running the departments. And, we were able to focus on the things that entrepreneurs and owners should focus on, which is vision, culture, key relationships, and strategy. And that's all we were focused on, which frankly allowed us to scale even faster because we're focused on top of the funnel, marketing, networking. And we hired a videographer and marketing people and would follow us around every day. Spoke with Gary Vaynerchuk at different events and went and interviewed Ryan Serhant and things that we would have never been able to do if we were still stuck in the business. So I think that's why we were able to win the awards we did, is because we were able to sort of like remove ourselves, because we were the biggest problems. We were also the reasons the business grew, but we were the biggest issue internally from like a culture perspective.
Dom, sound familiar?
It sounds very familiar. We're both, I think we probably both started EOS around that time, like
Yeah.
2015, 2016 or something.
I think it was 2000. I think it was 2017.
Whatever. We had separate businesses. We were in EO together and Forum together. And, EO kind of has things that spread through it like wildfire, and Traction was one of those things back then. And so Stan and I actually hired a now friend of ours, Ben Berman, to be our first implementer separately. And from the day we like started this company and wrote out our business plan, we were writing it out on a VTO and like doing the entire planning according to Traction. So we're also both big believers in the system.
And fun fact, we decided to self-implement, which we thought we were doing such a great job at, because we were like, we've done this before, we could do this. We did do a decent job, and then like earlier last year, we were like, all right, we need to take a pause. We need to hire an implementer, and like we did, and it actually like even transitioned our business even more, because we were like missing out on like such little things, but those little things led to such bigger things.
Yeah, that was wise. That was wise. The nuance is stuff that you miss when you do it yourself, because you don't have someone else who's done it for 50 other clients who's like, no, I've seen this before. Like this chapter has been run through.
Right. And it's
We
the same.
also
I mean,
have
look,
blind spots.
right. And we're also in it. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, as entrepreneurs, we're running through that forest, right? I say it all the time. When you're in it, you can't see the blind spots. When somebody's outside, like when I'm talking to other companies, I'm like, I see all your blind spots, because I'm not sitting in it. From the outside, it's easy to solve those problems. So important question, I think. How do you find that person, right? Or what give us an interview question that you would ask somebody, like something that's like, why am I hiring you? Right. I think that's because everyone is, people are starting out their business. They go try to make that hire. Right. And you ask them the question, well, what are you waiting for? And they're scared. Right. Well, what about if I hire the wrong person? Right. So
I can't afford to hire the wrong person. Like money's tight. Like you're not taking a salary. One bad decision, you feel like it could end your like life as a business owner, right? So,
yeah. I mean, personally, some of the most impactful hires we ever made were roles that allowed us to elevate. Like an executive assistant, and nowadays, like virtual assistants are very much, an easy way to do that effectively and create a lot of impact. But even prior, like it was a really valuable hire, because it removed, constant inbox, constant calendar, constant confirmation of meetings, organization of your entire world, which allowed us to focus a lot more on the things that mattered and generated top of the funnel and all the other things. So I think from like a who to look for first, it's stuff that, early on, stuff that can elevate you, they can really remove you from the minutia. For me personally, I was a really bad interviewer. So because I wanted to convince everyone that we were the best place in the world to work for. And I see the best in people. And I think that's a superpower. It's also a big issue if I'm responsible for hiring. So I think quickly my partner and everyone else was like, yeah, you can't hire anymore. Like you can take the final interview. Like you can make sure that this is a culture fit and this person shares our core values. But like, God forbid you're interviewing for the role. I think, making sure that you're hiring people who complement your weaknesses. And so like someone who's extremely analytical, type A, and very organized, loves to cross T's and dot I's. For a typical producer who loves sales conquering the world, that's a really high quality hire in general. So, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, no, it does. And I mean, kudos to you, right? Like you're able to be self-aware and say, or maybe pushed by your team, say, hey, I'm not really great at this, right? So I'm going to have to step out and not focus on those things. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we think we could solve every problem because it's our business, it's our baby. But then you find somebody that's 1,000 times better than you, and you're like, holy shit,
Mhm.
I wish I hired that person a long time ago because they're a lot better at those things than me.
Yeah, and if your core values are strong and everyone shares them and everyone's proud of them, they start to defend it. And they defend it through interviews. And they don't wanna hire someone who's gonna be a cancer. So they're gonna really dig in and make sure it's the right people, because 'cause they're gonna have to be working with them day to day. So I think that was an aha moment for us.
All right, and let's fast forward to what 2019. You ended up selling the business.
Yeah, we went into 2019 with no plan to sell the business. Still having fun growing the agency. But I think it was an advisor who recommended, like, hey, you guys have been in business for 9 years. Like, you don't even know the value of your business. You should at least have like educate yourselves. So we started going through that process of educating and asking questions. And through that process, realized here's the value range that we could probably garner, which was a lot more than we thought we were worth, which was a big, step in the right direction. And the second was the deal structure. And that deal structure was a big aha for me because, we were still growing quickly and I didn't want to sell too early and not capture future growth. But I also love the idea of taking chips off the table. And I knew that there were things in the future that I was probably interested in starting and doing as well. That, would be helpful if there was more liquidity and opportunity and resources to do so. So realizing that there were earnouts and other ways to create wealth post close was something that was a hurdle removed, a fear removed. And one thing led to another. We hired the right crew, and then ended up going through a formal process. Chose the partner that we felt was the best fit for us, and we transacted in 2019. Um, and it was a great great decision. You make your bed when you transition. You're no longer the owner, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to also brace for some impact because no partnership is perfect. No partnership is perfect. And so we went through that process and was with them for a number of years to make sure we crushed the earnout and we made sure the team was transitioned properly and taken care of and clients were in a good spot. But yeah, it's a big win and it was a big launch pad.
Biggest lesson you learned selling the business, or maybe advice that you would have for somebody that's thinking about selling their business or in a similar situation.
Yeah, I think that one, making sure you have people, just like you said earlier, you tried to self-implement EOS and traction and you realize like you can see all your blind spots and having a facilitator implementer kind of help guide you and support you just created such better outcomes. And the same thing, like we hired investment banking teams and we interviewed a lot of different groups to help support us through that. And it really helped. It helped us not only get the best financial outcome, but also avoid a bunch of pitfalls and get out of our own way. I think that most banks, they're focused on the transaction as they should be, and they're responsible to help you generate the best outcome. I think asking a lot of questions to the potential acquirers about day two and going eyes wide open into the interview process, figuring out what life is going to look like post close. That's really important because you wake up the next day, you have a lot more zeros in your bank account, but life looked very similar. Like you have a 9 a.m.
Some
meeting with the team. Like
some people.
you, like life isn't completely like different the next day. And so um, choosing the right partner, especially if you plan on being around for a little while, is really, really important.
Yeah, and honestly, I went through a process where I didn't talk to a banker a few years before I sold my business, and then when I ultimately ended up selling it, I worked with Sika Fletcher, who was my advisor on that deal, and the outcome was much,
Al's
much,
on the podcast.
much
Watch the
different.
video.
Yeah.
Link in the
Although Al's a
description.
competitor of yours now, though, so I guess
No,
maybe we shouldn't plug him on the.
oh no, 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 no. I look at so like insurance agencies like masterminds and groups. they all look at each other as like, they don't look at each other as competitors because there's so much vast
Sure.
opportunity out there. The same way, like Marshberry, Dowling Hale, Sika Fletcher, any other group, Midcap, like they're all
Mid
great.
cap, yeah.
They're all great. Like hire any of them and it's going to be a great outcome, right? It's going to be a lot better outcome than doing it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So for us, like, yeah, I don't want to jump the gun, but our competition is people not knowing we exist, not other people doing what we do.
So, which I guess is a good segue. Tell us about what you're building, Matt.
Yeah,
Tell
that
us
is a
why
good
you're different.
segue. Well, I think part of the journey of entrepreneurship is figuring out where there's opportunity and it intersects with things that you really enjoy and challenges that are worth your time. And then you try to find really awesome people to go conquer those challenges with. And I think part of the process of selling the business opened my eyes to how much more there could be out there in terms of resources and support and education for agency owners, especially agency owners in that 1 million to 10 million range, who historically haven't gotten the type of support and guidance that, a lot of the large agencies get from larger investment banks. And so it was kind of like the impetus for starting Legacy Advisors and, joining as a partner in 2020, what was it, 2025, I think. But the group, we basically are sell side advisors for insurance agencies. We only do sell side. There's no buy side diligence work ever because we don't ever want to have a conflict of interest, in terms of like representing an agency in the morning to a group and then getting paid for a buy side engagement in the evening by the same groups. It's just not right. And it's also a ton more fun helping a third generation agency in California and a startup in Texas, Medicare shops to PNC to benefits to everything across the country. It's just a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what we do. We help agency owners, sell their business with a level of confidence that they wouldn't have otherwise, knowing that it's one of the biggest decisions of their life, and they want to get to the end and feel really good about it. They want to look back with regret. They want to know that they made all the choices right when it mattered most, and that's the role that we play. That's why we exist. And there's just so much opportunity in this space to add value. A lot of agencies transact without representation. That's the group that we obviously are getting to. And we've had a lot of fun. We've helped 45 agencies sell in the last 34 months.
Wow.
And I don't think there's another sell side advisor in the space that can say that. It is an absolute blast what we're doing. We got a team of 15 and awesome, amazing cultural people who fit our core values and all the work that we've done previously and my partners have done previously on building businesses have really helped us supercharge this business the right way.
I have a few questions, but one that comes to mind, um, how much easier is it for you to start, your next venture, your next business, and it seems like you're growing really quickly. You guys just started for what you know and what you learn from your last business, and now you're starting this business, right? Like, how much quicker is it to ramp up? Like, do you almost have a cheat code now that you went through everything you went through?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, yes. Like there's a lot of mistakes that we all made 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? That we just know not to make. So in that sense, yeah, like implementing EOS right away, like not hiring the wrong people right away, like
Getting
the
an
importance,
implementer.
yeah, the importance of process design and making sure that like all the, just understanding how businesses tick and understanding what's most important in inning one versus inning three versus inning seven, and focusing on what those things are early on, knowing that there are fires that are going to burn, but being okay with it because this is what matters most. Yeah, for those reasons, yeah, I would say that I've never worked harder than we are because the work is really, really challenging and fun. And I think that uh, the best part about it is choosing the people that you want to work with and the challenges that you want to conquer with them. Um, when you start your first business or you're early on in your career, it's like you don't have the luxury to do that. You need to move quickly. You need to create income. You need to pay
Survival mode.
bills. Yeah, you need to pay bills, right? So like anyone who's willing to help and you're like, all right, let's go build together, right? You need to find builders, not operators. And then eventually you get to a point where you shift and you need to find operators and leaders. And I think I was in a very fortunate position where I didn't need to make money day one. I was able to play long games with the right people And because of that lack of need and urgency to transact, I think we grew faster because of it, because people hurt, like, we would have calls and intro calls and yeah, people would know, like, we're not selling anyone on selling. It's not right for everybody. And like it, and you should make sure you're absolutely fully comfortable and confident it's the right thing for you. I think that resonated with a lot of, agency owners. And the fact that we have the same background, that we lived in their shoes, we went through the whole process together. Like, we have extremely uh, finance savvy individuals on the team. A partner who was in PE for 8 years and built pro formas for multi-billion-dollar companies. So like we've got that box checked, but the fact that we have prior agency experience creates a relatability and trust level that wouldn't exist otherwise, and that helped us grow really fast as well. And just network. The brand that you build and the relationships that you build for a decade and a half, you tap on those individuals, say, hey, this is what we're doing now. And if you built enough trust with them and the relationship capital that you had, and they trust that you're going to do the right thing for their clients and you're a good person, like referrals flow in pretty quick.
What's one question or one thing that what advice do you have for somebody that's maybe thinking about selling their agency? What's the process they should be going through, or what should they thinking about, or a
Or
question
even walk through a little bit like what a process looks like maybe too.
Yeah, I could do both. I mean, I think a lot of agency owners, the greatest thing about the insurance business is that the residual income, right? The renewals and like
The
the
original
stickiness of it,
subscription
right?
model.
It's also the worst thing sometimes because it allows us to not like elevate to more sophisticated, owners. And so for a lot of agency owners, they've built really nice businesses, but their books just aren't prepared, right? Their financials aren't in order. And I think that's where people need to start. So like whether it's hiring a fractional CFO or working with a really good bookkeeper and like making sure that everything is buttoned up, you're in control, you understand what your finances look like, and you can, prepare and produce those quickly. That's a good place to start. It's amazing. We've talked to individuals who don't have balanced books, or it might take 6 months to generate like a really good Excel formatted P&L. It's so that's a good place to start. I think educating yourself and asking questions, whether it's from a group like us or just from people who have done it before, is really, really important. Just like we did. Like I asked questions. I started raising my hand and saying, I'm like, what is this equity appreciation? And like, wait a second, I can transition from a 50% owner of a $5 million revenue agency to a 1% owner of a $200 million agency. I can still maintain some skin in the game, and there's earnouts, so I can continue to benefit from windfalls in the future for continued growth and capitalize on all-time high multiples up front. Like I didn't know all that before I started asking the questions. And I think people should ask more questions and educate themselves as to like what that looks like. Um, so if that answered that question, I think in terms of process, like a typical really good investment banking process, it starts with evaluation. So you can, not just for the benefit of the seller, but for the benefit of the banker and the advisor. Like we don't want to push anyone to sell if they're not optimized. And if they really want, they got one shot at this, maybe it's been in their business, in their family for 10 decades. Who knows? They got one shot at doing this. They got to do it right. And if their adjusted margin isn't where it needs to be and they're really heavy in the wrong areas, if it's payroll or marketing or whatever, they need to know that and make adjustments and changes over the next 6 to 12 to 18 or 24 months. And we'll still be there, but like they need to go do that so they can feel really good about the sale. So going through evaluation allows us to uncover, are they optimized and are they ready to go? Are they ready to sell the business? Also gives us a chance to get to know each other, get to know us, and figure out, do we really want to get in bed together and go do this and go to market and help them through diligence, everything. Because not everyone's the right fit for us, and we're not the right fit for everybody. So start with evaluation. If it makes sense, they sign an engagement letter. We start preparing a full sim, call it a 20-page marketing deck that basically says everything about their business. Curate a buyer list that there's 70 highly acquisitive buyers in the industry. Not everyone is going to want all agencies. If you're a big PNC shop, you want commercial, and if someone that has Medicare comes to the door, you're not buying that. And so it's a waste of everybody's time. So curating a buyer list and narrowing that down to a really, really nice group that really want your business is important. And then making sure that a teaser goes out to all of them. NDAs are signed before a sim is released. Then you schedule buyer meetings, have buyer meetings with all the potential acquirers. You evaluate all the letters of intent and you compare that with the culture fit. And that's the big piece. Like before any buyer meeting and before any management meeting, we're prepping our clients. Hey, these are the questions you should be asking, to know if what day two is going to look like. These are the questions they're going to ask you. Here's, how you probably want to respond to these if they're going to ask those questions. Making sure that they go through that eyes wide open and ask all the questions to uncover what day two is going to look like is super important. Then we help them evaluate the letters of intent, choose the right one for them. Then we go into confirmatory diligence, which is essentially 60 to 90 days of confirming everything that was said up front in the pro forma and the sim is accurate. And they get to a close, hopefully with the confidence level that, they uncovered all the stones. They talked to all the potential buyers, kissed some frogs along the way. So they got the perspective that matters. And then they chose the right fit for them, their team, and transitioned the right way.
Typically, like how many potential buyers are you seeing out there in the marketplace for your clients right now?
So there's, call it 65 to 70 highly acquisitive PE-backed and publicly traded buyers. There's new ones popping up all the time. There's different PE firms that want to be sponsors and they are sponsoring. People have raised $100 million and they haven't necessarily acquired their first agency yet. So there's a lot of different types of buyers out there. And not everyone wants to sell to PE, nor should they. Not everyone wants to sell public, nor should they. Not everyone wants to sell down the street to the local bank, nor should they. So we're agnostic, and that's why we're on sell side only, is like we don't want to influence them beyond advising. And so they're, if someone is really interested, and we had somebody who was really interested in selling to one of three buyers that she knew locally, and she wanted our help doing that. Sure. And then a lot of people want, to maximize the value of their business. And so getting the top bids from the best buyers in the country, that's important to them. So if there's 70 or so, we'll probably go to anywhere between 7 to 15 to start. If 70% of them sign an NDA, we're having management meetings between 5 and 8, and we're getting letters of intent from most of them because we've curated that list based on who we knew they would want.
Right.
So we're comparing 3 to 5 letters of intent, essentially.
That's awesome. And thanks for sharing. And I mean, obviously you've said a lot, but one thing that stood out to me is make sure you ask questions, right? On all sides of it. Sometimes you meet people, and especially like job interviews, I'm like, do you have any questions? They're like, no. Like, you have no questions. No. You understand everything I do? Yeah, not the right fit for us.
Yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time together,
Yeah, but asking questions,
well, not with the person that didn't ask questions because they're not getting hired.
Yeah, they're not getting the job. But just in general, right? Like you're prepping them with those questions, right? What are the right questions to ask? Because it is important. Because they don't want to, get married to this company now. They hate it and they're stuck there, and now they're probably saying, Matt and his company sucks because they made me choose the right company, right?
I mean, I know a lot of agency owners that had a great financial outcome and they were really unhappy when they woke up day two. And I know agency owners that had a good financial outcome and they were fortunate to really like the partnership day two, but not because they went through the process and asked all the right questions. It was just, they got lucky. And we try to remove that luck as much as possible so that if there's 100 agencies we help over the next few years, if 95 of them can say, I'm happy with this group, nothing's perfect. There's been a few bumps, any transition is going to be tough, but overall they are who I thought they were and they've delivered on their promises. Then that's a huge win for us.
That's awesome. So, before we get into our last segment, Legacy Advisors, where can people find you? How can people find you if they want to get more insights from you guys?
Yeah, I mean, our website is legacy-advisors.com. A lot of people just shoot an email to me, which is matt@legacy-advisors.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn. So that's probably the easiest way, either email or just go on the website and submit an inquiry if people want to. That's where it starts, is just exploring conversations. I've had 3 conversations this morning with agency owners that shouldn't sell for another 5 to 10 years, right? But that's where it starts. It's like just educating. So I think the conversations are where it starts.
That's awesome. And we'll throw the information down in the description as well. Rapid fire. This is probably my favorite segment. Personal questions, quick and easy. We're going to hit you with some rapid fire. Best business book you've ever read?
Mm. Think and Grow Rich was one of my all-time favorites, and I read that probably 20 years ago and reread it 5 times since.
Best golf course you've ever played?
Fisher's Island's probably my favorite.
That's so good.
But Royal Dornick is right up there.
Really? I got to play Fisher's, I think 2 summers ago. The place is spectacular.
Fisher's is great. Royal Dornick was probably a better experience, but it was unbelievable.
All right, Stan, we got to go to Ireland, I guess.
I was gonna say this segment's gonna take a long time. Dom's gonna talk about his favorite courses. We don't have that much time, but I'm glad you kept it moving. Let's keep it on golf. What's your golf handicap?
Right now I'm a 7, and a
Ooh,
competitive 7, which is better than not a very competitive 5.
Sorry, I lost the questions.
I got you.
Go ahead.
College baseball batting average.
Senior year was well over 300.
Wow, you're proud of that too.
It's because I didn't tell you the 3 other years.
Well, you got to tell us
No.
now. You can't bring it up and tell.
Nah, I had a very poor average my first 3 years. I figured it out heading into senior year, killed it, but I had the benefit of being really good defensively, and so I got to catch 152 games over those 4 years, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Anybody that threw to you played in the majors?
I had 6 or 7 guys played professionally. I caught all of them, and all pitchers, but no one got to the major league level. AAA was the highest it got.
Were you in the MAC? What was Vermont?
We were America East, so we played against like Maine, Northeastern, Binghamton, Albany, Stony Brook.
Favorite baseball player?
When I lived down in Atlanta growing up, it was Chipper Jones, and then he made some bad decisions, and I thought, we'll move it to Ken Griffey Jr. So it was Chipper into Ken Griffey.
Everyone loved
Ken
Griffey.
Griffey.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford the Griffies, but they were cool. Favorite meal?
I'm a sucker for a flatbread, pizza. Pepperoni pizza is just like go-to. If I'm going out and I don't want to look like a slob and feel horrible the next day, I'm just a steak, potatoes, and asparagus guy.
Dom, last
What's your
question.
Starbucks order?
Venti, Pike, Red Eye.
All right.
We haven't had that one.
All
yet.
right. Well, isn't that like just a shot of espresso? Is that what that is?
Yeah. A couple shots of espresso and a coffee. Yeah.
We heard it here. We heard it all. Matt, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I learned a lot. Thanks again so much. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button. If you're looking to sell your agency or you're thinking about selling your agency, reach out to Matt. Thanks, everybody. We enjoyed it. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Matt.